Welcome back to another episode of Imagine Better, everybody. Today, I have a good friend of mine, HR specialist, the guru of changing and growing companies, Mr. Brad Voorhees himself in the house. Welcome, brother.
Appreciate it, my man. Happy New Year. Am I the first of 2025?
What is today? No.
Oh.
Yes. No, you are.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so this is,
it's the 8th.
you are the first.
Yes.
See?
You either want to be the last of 2024, which of course is already in the rearview mirror, or the first of 2025. So I'm honored.
You are.
It's going to be December.
You're setting the stage.
It's going to be December 31st of this year, and you're going to be like, "Wow, I filmed another 25 episodes," and you're like, "Brad was the first one that came in 2025."
See, I love it, and so now it's like it's really interesting because April of 2024 is when we had the very first inaugural pilot of the show.
Got it.
And then shortly thereafter, episode 1. So Terry Bean was the first last year. Brad.
Yep. Good friend.
Year.
All right. Yep.
So
Terry Bean, funny enough, on the day this is being recorded, January 8th, Terry Bean and I, this morning, were going back and forth on LinkedIn about something. So there you go. So I was talking to Terry just this morning.
Nice. I did too. He put a post out there about the 6 things about hiring a coach or something, and you commented on it, and I go, Terry, no, you're the number one. You're the only one or something like that people need to hire.
There you go.
So then he reached back out to me on that one. So, yeah, Terry, great. I mean, almost every guest that comes on this show brings his name up. I bring him up often. He's a good friend. I've known Terry. It's been over 20 years.
Got it.
How long have you known him?
Oh, well, I met him. I knew about him just because of his presence and his social following, right? Yeah. And obviously, being in the HR space here in Metro Detroit, you just hear people's names. But actually meeting him in person was the same where I met you in person at a Southeast Michigan Chamber event.
That's right.
Are we talking 12, 14 months ago now or something like that?
You were just getting into your, I think really just getting your feet wet into your company. Like it's been a few months into it.
Yeah. I would say like from a full-time basis, being less than 5 years, my feet are still wet.
Right. I don't think they're ever going to get dry.
They're maybe like ankle or shin, maybe it'll get down to the ankles in the next year or so. But yeah, that's true. And I met you. In fact, all 3 of us were at the same table.
We were. Now I remember that. Yeah.
So that was fun.
That's right. I forgot we met there. I was thinking we met somewhere before that, but you're right. That was an event. Shane Janino invited me there because that was my first event. Because I recently, at that time, I just signed up for that Southeast Chamber.
Got it. Okay, yeah.
So
I've
there
been
you
to
go.
a lot of events.
There you go, everyone. That's how we met.
Another plug for them, right? So I've been to most of their events over the last year.
Yes.
They have a great event coming up at the end of this month.
Yes.
That I'm attending. So
very nice.
I'm probably gonna re-up with them. So.
Yeah, I've been with them. Well, about the same time, and I've been to almost all of them. There's probably a couple I didn't go to, but yeah, great chamber. So here we are. I want to talk about, before we get into the world of HR and what led you there. Kind of walk us back a little bit. Tell us who Brad is. You're married. You have a family.
I do.
You're a tall guy, handsome guy, friendly guy.
Well, I appreciate all of these pleasantries. Yes, so there'll be plenty of time to talk about HR, but a little bit about me personally. I am 41 years old.
Nice.
And geez, this is going to sound, this is interesting. Speaking of the Southeast Michigan Chamber, there was an event right before Christmas, so we're talking no more than 30 days ago.
I went to that.
Well, that one, I'm not talking about that one. It was at Shane's cigar bar event. That was a week or so later. You weren't there.
You're right. I do remember this.
But you know who she is. Her name is Kristen. I think you pronounce her last name Shaoni. And she's with Flagstar Bank, and she's always at the Southeast Chamber events.
Okay.
We were at the cigar bar at Shane's event a week later.
Right.
And we were talking, and it came up how old I am. And I go, I'm 41. And she goes, you are not 41. And
you don't look that old.
I'm like, yeah, I'm 41. Like, in fact, I'm closer to 42 than I am 41. And she's like, you do not look like you're 41.
He looks like he's 28, everybody. Come on.
So I was like, wow, I really, really appreciate that. Yeah, so 41 years old. I live in Royal Oak.
Okay.
I grew up in Royal Oak.
Okay.
So outside of living, when I went to college at OU, I'm a 2-time graduate, both bachelor's and master's in HR and HR disciplines at Oakland. But outside of living kind of in that Rochester, Auburn Hills area for about 3 years during that time of my life, I've lived in Royal Oak for every other time. So.
That's right, because we were at a chamber event. My buddy Keith Powers, I introduced you to, he's from Royal Oak, and you guys had this whole conversation.
We went to the same high school.
Went to the same high school. You knew the same people, the same teachers, obviously. Keith was a guest on my show a few months back.
Yeah. I've been.
So here we are.
I've been trying to get in contact with him. He would be somebody great to talk to. But yeah, so grew up in Royal Oak.
Nice.
Parents still live there. We live no more than probably a 2-minute drive for them. Some people may find that weird. I personally don't.
Nice.
My wife grew up in Troy. We've been married. This summer will be 13 years.
Congratulations.
And we've been together for almost 20. We've been together since 2006.
Oh my goodness, that's even, wow.
Yeah,
that's
so
awesome.
Met kind of in college. We're friends for a couple years beforehand. So college, like post-college sweethearts, but knew each other in college. So now we have 2 young children. I have a daughter who's in 3rd grade. And then my son is a little over 2, so he's not school age yet.
Yeah.
But that's a little bit about me personally.
Awesome.
Outside of, I have to mention.
So that just validates he's human, you guys.
Yes, yeah. And I just have to say,
superstar, alien-driven HR master.
No, yeah. And I would just have to say, because I've been on a lot of podcasts and content sharing like this, and I always mention my love for the Atlanta Braves. So
there you go.
I just have to say it because it is a big part of my life. In fact, a lot of times you see on my LinkedIn posts of pictures that I'm in, all my Braves stuff in the background. Yep. So for me,
what made you an Atlanta Braves fan?
When you're if back in the day in the '90s, Ted Turner, who was the former owner of the Atlanta Braves, he hasn't been in a very long time, but he owned the team, and he of course is the founder of TBS, Turner Broadcasting System. So back in the '90s, and the Braves were really good, he basically used TBS as the own private channel of the Atlanta Braves.
Right.
TBS is a fairly standard cable channel.
Yeah, I remember that.
If like any cable package, you had TBS.
Yeah.
And so for a very long time, the Atlanta Braves were the most nationally televised team because it didn't matter where you lived, what market. If you had TBS, and of course baseball is a sport for 6 months on the year. It's on every day. It's not like Sunday or football where you tune in on Sundays. Baseball, basically for 7 months straight, is an everyday sport. Yeah. Outside of a couple off days here and there.
Did you play?
I did. I did play in high school. Stopped after that, but it has not removed my just love of baseball. I love the Atlanta Braves. I watch them a lot. I'm a big fan. Have you been
to one of their games?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I fly down to Atlanta at least a couple times a year. They have a beautiful stadium. I was last there in September. Took my daughter. We went for a weekend trip. It was fantastic.
Oh, that's a cool memory.
Yeah. So that's a part of my life. Is I'm just a normal guy. Married, kids, go to church. Love the Atlanta Braves. Play golf and other things that keep me active. Hang out with my friends.
Yep.
Just like every other
guy. Normal. I love it.
I know.
Wow.
Like there's and work, right? I mean,
you're the most normal person I've had on this show.
That's right.
My God.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. That is great. I mean, so many of us, myself included, there's been like this amazing journey, but across that journey, there's been derails, we derail in life. And, which I think it's like a mutual friend of ours, Jacob Brown, talks about, fell forward.
Right.
We're all going to experience some type of we're going to skin up our knees in our journey, right? But, so you're going to college, you decided HR. Why HR?
Yes.
You love people that much?
Well, I think that's something we'll have to get into, is because people, when they think about going into the field of HR,
right,
they get very enamored with the fact that, you get to make people happy, you get to be on these culture committees, plan events, all this fun stuff.
Right.
And then you actually start your career in HR.
Okay.
And you realize that that is less than 1% of the job.
Why is that, you think?
Well, because of course, HR is a function, and we'll have to get into this, especially over the last 4 years. It's really changed dramatically.
Okay.
Since COVID, the field of HR has changed dramatically. But when you get into it, is you realize, all right, all this stuff that you were so driven to get into HR because you thought that's what you get to do on a daily basis.
Right.
You're like, whoa, you actually get kicked in the teeth in HR because you get pressure from both sides of the company. When I say both sides, you've got leadership, management, ownership, right?
Right.
The bosses.
Yep.
And then the other side is the employees of which you are there to serve.
Right.
And no matter what, and it has gone up and down, and it's different for big companies and small, but the fact of the matter is in American society, the odds, there's always the employee base and the boss base are always going to be at odds with each other.
Okay.
Always.
Yeah.
Because that's a byproduct of capitalism. Not that it's a bad thing.
Right.
But it's always going to be a relationship where one side is going to try to get the upper hand on the other. Facts. And that's never going to change.
Okay.
And guess who is stuck in the middle of navigating those challenges?
HR.
Right. So I learned that.
So it doesn't stand for hurry, run.
Right. Yeah. So, and that's why, and we'll have to, and going to what's changed over since 2020, of course, COVID and how that's all changed, that's why we see a record number of people get out of the field of HR.
Really? Okay. I can see that.
Because the pressures of trying to do more with less,
right?
Which is basically what every company wants, right? More with less.
Yeah.
And then you see posts about companies' record profits, big time bonuses, and then
when you see those reports, send them to me because I'm going to contact them about their marketing.
Exactly.
Hey, you have money. I saw the report.
Exactly. Yeah. And then a week later, lay off 1,000 people.
Yeah, that's sad.
Right. And so people are like, yes, I can't wait to help the people of my organization. But in the end, HR collects a paycheck, just like the person in marketing does, just like the person in finance does, and all this type of stuff. And who writes that paycheck? The boss does.
Right. Yeah.
So you may have all of these feelings that, like, I can't wait to get into this field because of these reasons, but you will get kicked in the teeth. But the better that you stick with it, just like anything else, the more that you stick with it and learn how to be a resource and a benefit and provide value to the entire company, which impacts everybody.
Right.
The more successful you're going to be as an HR professional.
Okay. So now, I've imagined that you, through your journey of finally going out on your own, leaving corporate America, starting your company, that, I mean, you probably see like the really, like, oh my God, you walk in and go, man, this culture is messed up.
Yeah.
That's got to happen.
Yeah.
But that also, it seems like to me, would be a wonderful challenge. If the leadership has the right mindset and being open-minded. And then I'm sure you go into companies and go, wow, this is almost like a well-oiled machine. This is just going to be fun to be part of their scalability and their growth here, right?
Well, I can say that from a entrepreneurial side. So just working for myself,
right.
which I've been, we talked about 5 years in business. It's gone up and back and forth between being a side hustle to a full-time, and for the last year and a half, it's just been straight full-time, no questions asked. From that standpoint, I've worked specifically with small businesses, and that's all I want to work with. Right. I'm the person.
Define that. Up to how many employees?
So I do it.
Or is it by revenue?
I do it by employee count. Okay. 30 to 300. I do it by 30, and you can flex a little bit. Like I'm talking to a client right now that has less than 30.
Right.
But is going to be more than 30 by the end of the year. And they don't have any HR support, right? So, I mean, these are like, I'll flex outside. I'm not so rigid, but that's the bucket, right? But small businesses in general, my clientele, they just don't have anything in place. So I've never been in a spot where I'm like, wow, this is such a, like almost to the point where like, why are we even talking?
Right.
What do you need from me, right? It's never been that case.
Right.
And for the audience listening, this is small businesses, the employee count we're talking 90% of American businesses.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Right? Are in the employee count that I just said.
Yep, 30 to 300. That's
right. We're talking the overwhelming
fabric of America.
Right. Absolutely. We're talking about overwhelming majority of American companies. And there's so much here in the state of Michigan that I could I do work nationwide. I rather just prefer to work with just Michigan clients.
Yeah, same.
And there's plenty of them here. There's enough here in this state.
Yeah.
To work for the rest of my career.
Yeah.
So like there's always
technical difficulties.
Yes. Oh, here we go. Now I see what I did.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, so I mean, when we think about the volume of small, that 30 to 300 employee count companies, you're right. I mean, that's a little stubborn little thing, huh?
It is. It doesn't want to stay in there, stay in the clip, which is.
Yeah, sometimes those things just pop right off. Like, well, obviously we'll figure it out. There you go.
I'll be a little more careful.
So it's interesting because then the way I look at it is, okay, what are some of the challenges that these companies face, one, and then two, the culture of the organization, do you find that it does it have a direct correlation to the mindset of the employees? Like, so for example, you have a company that you have a strong leader, somebody who's almost type A, over the top type A. So he drives a culture, or she builds an organization, a culture of fear in their people, versus somebody who's open door. You know what I'm saying? And then they welcome ideas. No one's there's titles and there's things like that in companies because we need to get some things done, but. Everyone's kind of like, some cultures are like, hey, everyone's just kind of equal. Yeah, you have a title of this, but we come together as one. Yeah. So elaborate.
It's always leader driven. You're spot on, and that shouldn't be a surprise, right? And that's from like everybody knows about the strongest leaders in America because they've been around very long. They're constantly in the news. Yeah. Their companies are really well known and everybody wants to work for them, right? Yeah. But there are 1 million plus small business owners who are running a family business very well, right? Mm-hmm. But what I find when I get into, not even, this is before the buy, right? Before we actually sign a contract and start an engagement. When I'm talking to people come to me because they have issues.
Right.
Not because they don't have issues and they just want to pay me to just be there just in case. Right. It's because they have issues.
They're experiencing something.
Exactly. Right. And that's either I don't have any HR support at all. 50-person organization, right? I don't have any HR support at all, so my HR support is Google, or my office manager that I go tell to Google, or my executive assistant that I send him or her to HR workshops every quarter to learn and to come back, right? And this is what a lot of companies are getting by with. But
that's scary.
My saying is there are no problems like people problems. Mm-hmm. And so it is 100% true that as you grow and add more people,
right,
you will inherently have to deal with those people's problems.
That's true.
So the more people you throw into the pot, which is a metaphor of more people you hire and bring under your team,
yep,
the more problems you're going to have. That's just a fact, because people are people. It's human nature. We love to bring our personal baggage to work.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
You can't like something may happen in the parking lot right before you're going to walk into the office.
Yep.
It ruins your day.
Yeah.
On the company's dime. It
Right.
ruins your day on the company's dime. Right?
Yeah, I mean that's the joy of ownership and having employees, I guess.
Right. So you may say, I want to grow, and I'm going to hire 30 people this year.
Right.
Okay. Well, welcome to a reality that as you do that, there's going to be not only growing pains,
right,
but actually more problems that you will have to deal with. Why companies contact me, right? Because they may not be completely bought in, or even at the stage where it's like, I want to commit, we'll call it $150,000 to an HR director, like an experienced one, right? Yeah. And maybe that's just this area alone, right? But when I say that, you got to pay, when you have a full-time employee, you got their salary, their benefits, which costs anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000. There's payroll taxes, there's bonuses, so like all in, right? This is how much companies, you may say, oh, I'm getting paid $120, but it's like, but the company's actually investing like $150,000 into you with all this stuff that you don't even think about.
Right.
Right? You're just like, this is my salary. This is what I get paid. It's a lot more than that. So they may not be prepared or have the need for that.
Right.
But they need something. They need something. And that is what I do. I provide something.
Yes, yes. Hopefully a peace of mind and get these guys to realize something that's very important. They're people. That's why it's human in the resources, right? I think cultures need to start thinking about just humanizing the experience more, and understanding your people that you have working for you and giving them the ability to think and provide insight and offer ideas. And so many companies just seem like they limit that because the leadership wants to drive all that. And I get that, but I think companies that are excelling right now just seems like they're allowing their people to participate and feel like they're part of that journey.
Got it.
Not just showing up for a paycheck, right? So another thing that's interesting that I read recently, well, not just read, I have a payroll company that's a client of mine for my other company, Michigan CMO. And they're up in Traverse City, and they just did a video on the Michigan Paid Sick Act law that just came out.
ESTA, Earned Sick Time Act.
Now that
goes into effect next month.
Right.
Yeah.
Talk about that, because that is going to impact a lot of these companies that might not be prepared. And I'm actually surprised at how many small business owners I already know that knew nothing about it. I was like, you got to be kidding! You're under a rock right now, because this is going to hit your company hard.
So you said it's going to impact a lot. It is going to impact everyone.
Right.
Because even employers of one employee have to comply.
Yeah.
It's easily one of the most progressive, if not the most progressive, sick time law in the nation.
Right.
Like more progressive than California, right? Wow. And everybody's like, California's always got the most progressive stuff, right?
Michigan has to tie one.
A cold-blooded state in the Midwest. So yes, I have for months now been helped, because that ruling, but this is a case, and I'm not an employment attorney, but I partner with them, and just obviously being what I do, this is stuff I follow, right? And this is kind of some of the value that I add to my clients. So this case has been in the Michigan Supreme Court in Lansing for like 4 years now, circulating, appeals, data, back and forth, right? So this is something that the prior administration, prior Congress even passed. And this has been going on for 4 years now.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So it's like, it's been sitting there. people have been knowing what's been going on. But so I think it was last summer that the Michigan Supreme Court ruled, boom, back to what it was, which is this. And they blessed Michigan employers with essentially saying you've got 6 months, 8 months to prepare for it.
Oh my goodness.
So I have, of course, been helping my clients do exactly that as it goes into effect next month. But essentially, it is giving all employees, no matter if you're full-time salary, if you are full-time hourly, if you're part-time hourly, if you're even an intern, every 30 hours you work, and this is for, I think, employers of more than 10, but even if you have less than 10 employees, it's just a little bit of a different calculation.
Right.
But again, everybody gets this.
Yeah.
But essentially, every 30 hours you work, you accrue 1 hour of paid sick time. Keyword, paid.
Paid.
Right?
Yep.
Because the nation, the state, already has all of these laws on certain different leaves. Right. FMLA being the one everybody knows about because it's a employment law, it's national, it's been in legislation for 30 years, right?
Okay.
In law for 30 years now. But it's an unpaid leave. This is a paid leave.
Yeah.
Right? And so, of course, as a Michigan employer, you're like, wow, I could have an employee that was part-time, working 20 hours a week for me at McDonald's.
Right.
Right? So if this person, if she works 20 hours this week and works 20 hours next week, well, halfway through next week, she is going to accrue a paid hour of sick time. And, by the way, if you are at one of these manufacturing employers and you're busting out 60 hours a week, 30 hours in overtime, you're accruing 2 hours just for that week. And these hours can never be pulled back. They accrue in perpetuity.
No way. Boy, these companies are going to have to really plan differently now.
Right.
Budget differently.
Right, yeah. We won't get into the nuances, but it is a law that is shaking Michigan employers up because essentially it is more benefit that they have to prepare and plan for.
Right.
Right? Because if it was unpaid leave, we're talking about money here. We're talking about real dollars, right? And so if it was unpaid leave, it would be a different scenario. But this is paid leave.
So do you think employers are going to catch on and say, okay, if we're going to we have X number of employees, they each are, so annually we're going to forecast it out and say, okay, we're going to make this all up. We have 1,000 hours now of across our employee work pool that it's going to cost X. Are they going to start scaling back on new hires in terms of what they start paying hourly or salary-wise to offset that?
They'll do something.
They would have to, it seems like, or go out and make more money.
They'll do something,
somehow.
Right, because, this is the case with any other business. If you were, let's go back to manufacturing, which are clients I help a lot and I love. Your two biggest costs in that type of environment are your people and then, of course, the COGS, the cost of goods sold, right? If you're making a widget, there's something, you have to buy that widget from somewhere before you transform it into what you eventually sell to the end consumer.
Correct.
And so when the cost of that widget that you buy goes up, what do? You normally increase the cost or increase the sale price to the end consumer, right? So if you are forecasting for all of this paid sick time for your workforce, you're going to make decisions. And I'm not going to say who, but I have run into employers who are considering, well, if you're making me accrue this paid sick time, which in their mind, let's just say it's just time off. time off where they're not working and I have to pay them.
Right.
This is what goes on in a business owner's mind. They're not working and I have to pay them.
Right.
Right? If I'm going to be forced to put more into this bank than I'm going to take from, let's say, a vacation bank.
Oh, interesting. There's going to be shuffling the coconuts.
Shuffling the coconuts. Sure, there you go. That's a Mark saying. Shuffling the coconuts. So it's like, all right, well, if you're going to make me do this, then I'm just going to take from this.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's the right strategy because, of course, well, if you go to your workforce and say your vacation time is going down, which people, of course, treasure and want and is important, you are going to have to explain to your workforce that you've got less vacation time.
Right. Now, technically, though, paid time off, I mean, couldn't you accumulate over a year or 2 weeks worth of paid time off? Can I just take it as a vacation time? If I want, it's paid off, right? So, or is there a valid excuse or reason that I need to have that time off?
Well, not everybody for one, not everybody buckets under just PTO where they throw everything in there, except holidays, right? It's like, hey, your personal, your vacation, your sick, it's all just in PTO.
Pull from it as you need to.
A lot of employers still, what I call like bifurcate. Your vacation lane, your sick lane, your floating holiday, right? All this type of stuff. Because, and I have actually been advising my clients who aren't doing that already to actually start doing that.
Okay.
And let me tell you why. Because if you bucket everything into one, like what you had just mentioned, your ESTA time and all the rules, some of them, we just talked about some of them.
Yeah.
All those rules apply to the whole bucket if you do that. And you don't want to.
Yeah.
Okay? Take, for example, your part-time employee. Normally, companies don't offer part-time employees any benefits whatsoever, inclusive of vacation time, right?
Right.
But now you have to start offering them paid sick time. If you bucket it up, it's going to have to apply to the entire bucket. And you can say, well, if you're a part-time employee, you won't get vacation time, but under law, we are required to offer you this paid sick time law.
Right. They're going to take it.
They're going to take it, right. So, you know, that's why I've been advising to actually separate and take them out. So, I mean, this is a whole thing. And by the way, for anybody who's listening, there are still, because I think the effective date is February 15th. So, I mean, we're talking like
right
around there.
Yeah, a month away.
There is still, the next 30 days, employers, chambers fighting to stop this.
Wow. Is that even going to be possible, you think? So close to the finish line. I don't know.
I mean, we'll see. We'll see. Like, look, the louder you scream, you know, the more people will hear you, right? So you've got a ton of businesses saying, if you make us do this, bad things are going to happen. Well,
yeah. I mean, I mean, they're going to be forced to do some crazy internal decision makings around financing, about, you know, the finances of the company and the well-being. They're either going to have to shaft the customer to some degree because they're going to increase prices to offset that, or they're going to, for new hires or potential existing employees that perhaps were up for a raise or some type of evaluation, it's not going to happen.
Right.
And so now their people are going to be frustrated. So I mean, you know, I don't know. It's scary to think about how this how it's going to pan out.
Yeah, it is.
If it did get pushed through.
Yeah. So I mean, look. Oh, it's pushed through. It's happening unless it gets stopped. So it's already like if we did nothing, then it would go into effect in about 30 days. So I mean, this is something that I help my clients with. Look at their current policies. Yeah. Decide what's best for the organization moving forward, and sometimes there's hard decisions made, but like there is no alternative reality in America when you add a cost to something.
Right.
somebody along the line has to pay for it.
That is very true.
Right?
Yeah.
This isn't like the federal government where we just say, hey, we're going to go into debt and get this, this made up kind of like, oh yeah, let's just keep spending money. In private corporations, when there's a cost to something, somebody has to pay for it.
Yeah.
Where is that money going to come from? And these are discussions
that's a tough decision. I mean, it's almost like you have to spread it out, right? Because you have to either, you either have to hurt the workforce by not paying what they probably would desire, the type of money they desire to make, cut out opportunities across the company, cut back on expenses some way, somehow, or the customer's gonna be paying for that.
Right.
So there's the government model, right? Hey, we'll give you everything for free, but the taxpayers are gonna pay for it.
Yeah.
So that's the customer in this example, and I don't know what's the right way to do it, but
this discussion
something's gonna happen.
Yeah, this discussion isn't about what's right or what's wrong.
Right.
But going back to the beginning of this conversation, I want to be a part of an events committee and hold the Christmas party and be the person that passes out the turkeys on the day before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
What we're talking about now is something that HR is sitting at the table with.
Right.
Talk about getting kicked in the teeth.
Yeah,
that's what I'm talking about. That's why people are like, oh my gosh, HR is not all of this stuff. All of the rainbows. These are decisions. Why? But I can tell you what is the more experience under your belt, the more adversities that you go through.
Right.
And I'm just talking about keeping this to the lane of sticking in HR. HR can be an extremely lucrative career.
Right.
If you are adding value at that level.
Yeah.
It can.
I can see that.
And absolutely the belief I have in that has only heightened over the last 4 years as more and more employers, because everybody's got people problems, I can tell you that right now. Every company has them. Every company has them, and it's gotten worse over the last 5 years. Everybody's they're isolated, people have anxiety, all of this stuff, right? There's pressures about what I can afford at the grocery store and how much, and all of that stuff gets brought into the workplace, whether you like it or not. Mm-hmm. And the owner, CEO, whatever, they look to HR to solve that. And if you can, you will have a very successful career in being able to navigate those challenges.
So what's the future of HR then? Because it seems to me you're stuck right in the middle. You have the employees over here with their issues. You have leadership with their stress and anxiety and the pressures, like you mentioned earlier, pushing to the center.
Right.
Seems like you have to be you have to love humans.
Yep.
You have to be a psychiatrist to some degree, like a therapist. You have to be a business leader mindset.
Yep.
And you just have to be you're the little engine that's spinning the wheels on both sides over here. Where's the future of this thing going? What's the future of an HR person, 5 years from now, you think?
Well, I would hope, just from my own personal preference, that HR would get out. You mentioned it, psychiatrist. I hope, I pray to God that in 5 years from now, HR is back out of that seat. Mm-hmm. Because it is great to be, and I'm not talking, look, water cooler talk.
Right.
People make friends at work, right? And if you got a friend that comes up to you at work and said, man, my kid can't get over his sickness.
Right.
And it's really weighing me down. You as a friend, you're going to be there to lend a listening ear, right? Even like you and I would do that, T-Bean, like all these would just like, hey, let me just listen to you.
Right.
There's nothing like, I can't physically make your kid get better, right? But as a friend, people like to listen. So I'm not talking about that stuff. What I'm talking about is people are going into HR's office and they are expecting HR to now be the solver of their personal problems. Psychiatrist,
really?
right? And this is, and HR is not. HR's meant should be good in being empathetic and having a listening ear.
Right.
But they shouldn't be held accountable, or not accountable. They shouldn't be held responsible for fixing those problems.
Right.
And
you're bringing those personal issues into.
And the expectation is right now is that they do.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
And so that's what I've seen. Me as the president of Detroit Shurham, Michigan's largest chapter, like this is the feedback that we get, and it's just I've experienced it myself and people I've worked with, right? So this is kind of what's going on. It's like, hey, I need you to fix my issues. And I hope
that's scary.
It is. So I hope from a future standpoint we're out of that seat.
Okay, that would make sense.
And we can be a lending ear, we can be empathetic, but we are here to help grow the business. And you help grow the business by, when there is an issue, you resolve it, and you move forward, and you align on goals and how people are going to work together. You know, when humans work together for a shared purpose, like you can see what we can accomplish. We can accomplish great things together,
Absolutely.
Right? And so, but naturally roadblocks get in the way, and so HR is a very big part of that moving forward now and in the present. So I actually foresee, even with, and I do not want to get into an AI discussion, but even with the rise of AI and how that is going to transform businesses.
Right.
I do not believe that HR is going to be replaced in any way by, at least anytime soon, not in my lifetime, by where you can have AI tell you how to solve a specific problem. In the problems that I'm talking about, like interrelational, like human-to-human problems.
Yeah, I mean, if that could happen, therapists around the world would be freaking out.
Right, because they would be out of business. Right?
100%.
Yeah, they would be out of business. HR is great in people analytics and determining workforce needs and what skills that need to be happen or skills that need to be procured as your business grows.
Right.
All of this stuff. And then, of course, technology and how AI has been able to transform learning management systems, applicant tracking systems, performance management systems, all of that stuff. But a lot of times, HR is there to help a manager solve a problem with one of their team.
Right.
That's a big part of HR's job.
Kind of like a mediator, I guess.
Well, not even like a mediator, like, hey, I want to hear your side, you hear my side, and then the arbitrator makes the final decision, right?
Okay.
Like it is to again help both parties remove roadblocks so performance can improve, so the business can grow, right? And I don't see a world where AI impacts that to that level. Yeah,
that would be hard to see, but I mean, time will tell, I guess.
Time will tell.
AI it's evolved already so much, you know, especially in my space, outside of this show with my marketing world. But it still has a long ways to go. But okay, so what's interesting is in organizations, when you think about human resources and how companies are trying to build the best culture possible. I mean, where do you see mental health awareness? Where do you see like their individual personal growth journeys happening? True change.
Yeah. So what I talk about regularly on LinkedIn and why I get engaged with clients is because you have to look at human resources, in my opinion, as a talent experience. One talent experience. Like a lot of HR is no different than a lot of other disciplines.
Okay.
And I'm going to use marketing, for example,
sure.
your world, right? In marketing, in any given organization, you've got your corporate marketing, which could mean your branding and all of this type of stuff.
Right.
And then you've got your lead generation marketing, right? And that may be your ads team, your SEO, all of this type of stuff. You've got your organic marketing, right? That may maintain your social media presence and all of that type of stuff, right? And then there's traditional marketing, digital marketing, all this type of stuff. So there's all of these lanes. I just, without even being an expert in this field, I just listed 5. HR is no different. You've got talent acquisition. You've got training development, excuse me. You've got performance management, employee engagement. You've got onboarding. You've got HR technology. You've got total rewards. You've got compliance. In a lot of manufacturing environments, HR people are in charge of safety and all of that stuff. Now, of course, in smaller organizations, ones that I deal with, I just named all those things, and that's usually one.
That's a lot going on in HR.
1 to 3 people, right? But at large organizations, you've got your.
I think he's just jumping right off on you there.
I know. Well, it's because of how I'm moving and all this type of stuff. Right. So
it'll be there.
Yeah.
No, that's you know what? When just hearing you list that stuff, I was like, I don't think most people realize how big and massive HR really is.
Right, and I'm not mentioning. I could list another 10, right? Wow. But I think like the ones I just listed are the people are the lanes, we'll call them, that most people know, right? And think about when they think about HR. But at smaller companies, ones that I help with and advise with, all of those things are usually just 1, 2 people. But at large companies, all of those lanes are literally separated.
Oh yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
There are at larger companies there are specialists,
right,
and maybe a team of generalists. But those, like the recruiters, the talent recruiters, only do recruiting. They don't touch the rest of it, right?
Now, do you get involved with companies that maybe they don't have an in-house HR person or small team, but they outsource it? Do you still work with companies like that? Yeah,
I do, because they need help. And I'll get back to the talent experience piece in a second. They need help just navigating and managing those external partnerships.
I would think so.
Right? So, because you offer benefits to your employees, you're going through a benefit broker who brings you those benefits, shops the plans for you, goes through open enrollments, perhaps gives you the system of how to enroll people, all of this type of stuff.
Yeah.
But you may not like your benefit broker, which I have a client right now that is, I just got off the call with her this morning. They're not happy with their benefit broker. So they say, Brad, who can you introduce us to? Right. Again, these are value adds, but payroll technology, your employment attorney, outsourcing recruiting, right? Like these are things because of my partnerships and just being in HR for almost 20 years, you know people, right? Similar how you could say that.
Yes.
So going back to talent experience, like when you talk about culture, what I help my clients with is taking all of those HR lanes that I talked about and making it one talent experience. And I'll give one example that I know 99% of American workers have experienced. When you are interviewing with the company, maybe even you've experienced this, Mark, when you were working for somebody else. You're interviewing with the company. Oh boy, are they laying out the red carpet for you during the interview process, baby, right? It's like they are on top of it. They're giving you great feedback. You're not going into a weekend without like hearing from them on where you stand in the process. All of this type of stuff. You've met with the hiring manager, the recruiter, maybe somebody higher up, and you're feeling good about this job and how they're treating you. I have one in mind that I went through that process with. You get hired, Okay,
Years ago.
So this is the talent acquisition lane.
Right.
Right? Talent acquisition. You get hired. You start. No, not even before you start. You get hired. Your start date is 2 weeks away.
Right.
You've waited a week. Start date's now a week away. Waited more. Start day is now like the Friday before the Monday.
Crickets.
And you haven't heard from that company that you signed the offer letter with 2 weeks ago.
That's crazy.
And then you show up on Monday morning and ain't nobody's meeting you at the door. No. Got your computer set up. You've signed no paperwork, right? All of this stuff.
My
okay?
Gosh.
This is a very basic example, but I know that is an example that most people have personally experienced, right? Myself included. What type of talent experience is that?
Terrible.
Where the talent acquisition lane isn't flowing into the onboarding lane, right?
Yes.
That is,
Did you get that, people?
right.
Come on.
Yeah. So
You own a company, you're a leader at a company, listen to Brad.
So as somebody who talks about talent experience
Right.
and advises my clients, my job is to keep my ears open and to train and help my clients in how you can continue one lane of HR
Okay.
to the next to form a greater talent experience. Okay? And maybe let's just say you've got the talent acquisition lane down, you've got the onboarding lane down, you've been there for 6 months, you feel great. Best job I ever had.
Right.
In the recruiting process, you remember them saying you get an annual performance review.
Right.
Because everybody gets those, right? Most people do. Some have now gone to biannual or quarterly, all this type of stuff. But the majority get the annual. And you remember in the talent acquisition, because of course a lot of people associate I get my raises at performance review time, right? So that's what they're thinking about. It's like
now that sick leave paid thing anymore.
Nobody cares about a performance review if it wasn't associated with a comp review cycle. That's the only reason people care, right? Yeah. But so you remember in the talent acquisition process that, in December you're going to get a review. So now let's pretend for the first 6 months of your employment, everything's been good. And then it's time for the review. And you are left going into that process and you're like, I didn't get to talk about my accomplishments. My boss gave me no feedback. My boss didn't talk to me about what's next. The review process itself was on a Microsoft Word document, right, or whatever. I'm listing like these these things that happen a lot. You may say like, come on, that doesn't happen, Brad. It does, majority of the time. And you're like, that is not what I just experienced with this lane. Does not line up with what I've been experiencing thus far.
That's sad to hear. And that still happens.
What it happens to this is the majority of America. So it's like, how do I as an advisor help combine what's been called the HR department into making it one fluid talent experience that just flows.
So I like how you use talent experience.
And that's why the name of my company is ScaleTx, capital T, lower X. It's not ScaleTexas. The X is not capitalized. The X is lowercase.
Experience.
Because TX is an acronym for talent experience. So I scale talent experiences, right? That's the name of the company. So with that said, like this is how long term, if you create a talent experience, a good one.
Right.
This is how long-term you transform cultures that just go beyond a charismatic leader.
So, okay, I'm hearing you, and I'm struggling why these companies aren't doing some things here. So I love that you bring this insight and this process, if you will, to really reshape these organizations. Because a talent experience, a well-written, documented experience would totally, which is what you're doing, transform an entire organization. The way that the leadership and the people, the resources all kind of come together. All the expectations are laid out. Okay, here's what's next, the onboarding. These are all the things that are going to happen at the time. These are the time intervals throughout the year. It's going to happen. There's nothing being missed.
Right.
And it's all laid out. So it's sad to hear that some of these companies are they're not delivering on that. And that, to me, creates a culture of frustration.
Right.
I would think.
Well, listen, brother, this isn't going to surprise you. What I'm talking about is a certain amount of effort and time.
Right.
And energy and expertise.
Right.
And strategic input. And a lot of times, money, too. Right? Because you got to spend money in certain areas to improve, right? So, I mean, this, when you ask yourself, why don't companies do this and think about it this way? Well, I just laid out 6 reasons why they don't.
Right.
So, I mean, this is what's going on. And so, by the way, while you're trying to do all of that, there are still everyday problems that the HR team has to deal with on a daily basis in a small company.
I can imagine.
So when there are everyday fires to be put out, what takes priority in real time?
Right.
The fire or me building this talent experience?
Interesting.
Right?
Interesting.
So this is why brings up 2 points. Or goes back to 2 points. HR getting kicked in the teeth because of this, right? The world of work is changing dramatically.
Right.
And that makes, everybody wants people. Everybody wants the best. Everybody wants A players, A+ players. I only want A+ players, ninjas on my team, all this type of stuff that I can just trust and I'll give them this salary and they can perform it and I'll make all this money.
Right.
Everybody wants that.
Right.
And they put it on the HR team's shoulders to give them that. Right. And so when I was sharing, like, okay, you've got your everyday problems, that's going to take priority. This is how HR gets kicked in the teeth because it's very hard to do everything. And why HR is just leaving because they're like, I just can't deal with this anymore.
Yeah, so all this it leads me to one final question. Woo! You guys ready for this? Because a lot of you know what I'm about ready to say. When all the resumes that are being submitted across every platform you can think of, Indeed, LinkedIn, Jobs, your own website, not yours, but a company's, and it just seems to go into this never-ever black hole of, might just tell the person to go fuck off because you're not gonna, you never hear from anybody.
Nope, you don't.
Explain this. Where is this? How? Is it just that these companies are being inundated with so many resumes they can't? Or is I don't know what the answer is. I'm curious.
I can tell you, right? For the amount of people that are looking for jobs,
right?
It seems to not align with the amount of people who are blasting companies about not getting back to them, and it doesn't align with the amount of companies saying we can't fill roles.
Right.
How in what other time of history has employers been saying we can't fill roles and employees saying we can't find a job? Normally, there's only one side saying something.
And this has been going on
since COVID, essentially, right?
Right.
So, So to answer your question about the black hole, I would so love to say that HR is just inundated with too many resumes and they can't get they can't get ahead, right? And that's why, oh my gosh, short story. I saw somebody take a screenshot just last week.
Yeah.
They applied it was a screenshot of a rejection email, which we've all seen before, right? You apply to a job and you get that rejection email. They shared the screenshot, called out the company and everything on LinkedIn.
Oh boy.
Because it wasn't about the email. The verbiage in the email was your fairly standard stuff.
Right.
This was last week. They just got it. It was a job they applied to in January.
Oh my goodness.
So they got back to them 12 months later. That's when they received the rejection email.
Oh my.
Okay. All right.
Wow. Well, like, what's the point of sending it?
Right.
You know?
So I get the
Oops.
point. Yeah. Thanks, pal. Captain Obvious. I didn't get the job.
Right.
Right. So,
I didn't notice. Thanks for reminding me.
So I would love to say that this is something. Oh man, HR is just inundated. Whoever is reading the resumes, hiring managers, right? But the reality is that specific problem that you're talking about,
right.
Black hole people, that's been going on before COVID.
It's frustrating. I mean,
and the reason is,
I've been in part of that years ago, but I mean that used to bother me.
The reason is that the companies who are doing that just don't care.
Right. And that's sad.
And they don't care. They don't care if it's an employer market or an employee market, because we have, just like real estate, buyers and sellers, it goes in ebbs and flows, right? Right now, it's odd because employers are screaming we can't find talent, but there's a lot of
people, they say they can't find work.
Right, people who can't find work, right? So it's like, which one are we in? Are we in an employer or are we in an employee market? I would
So there's a massive gap there.
Right, there
Someone
is.
needs to solve it.
Right,
Come on, people.
Exactly. And so, but
hire Brad, he'll help you.
yeah. So the companies who have just been doing this, this isn't like this is a last 4 years problem. They were doing this type of shenanigans well before this.
Oh yeah.
Where you would apply and just not hear, and like that's even like one step. I mean, because you can send out now with LinkedIn, now with everything being mobile, a person can apply to 100 jobs in a day in an hour's worth of time, right? What has always been my biggest pet peeve is if you've actually like talked to somebody, you apply, you're one of the lucky people who get selected, right? Just for, I'm even talking like round one, recruiter interview. If you talk to somebody, anybody at the organization, and it's an actual scheduled interview, it's not just, right?
Right.
And then you get ghosted by that employer, you should not be doing that.
Right.
I mean, come on, people, right? Like that.
Communicate.
If you say, well, Brad, I got 1,000 applicants. Okay, out of those 1,000 applicants, you maybe only like talked to 5, and you selected 1. You can't get back to the other 4 people at the very least. Right. Right. Like that's a tough pill to swallow. Right. Right. And I'm not saying like
with all the technology today, it's, you know, and if you're internally managing and tracking that in a database of some sort the right way, it's very easy to just say, hey, Brad, thank you for your interest. At this time, we've decided to go a different direction, blah, blah, whatever the message is. Show that. That's human-centric approach, people. Right. You're dealing with real people, real humans here, so treat them that way, right?
I mean, like, how many times have you found out that you didn't get the job because you saw somebody on LinkedIn update their title?
Exactly.
Well, it's like, oh, I guess I didn't get that job, right?
Man.
That happens all the time. So, again, that is not a unique problem of the black hole of resumes. That's been going on. But I do want to say this, because ultimately, like, I do market myself as an employer side HR advisor.
Right.
Candidates ghost employers just as much. And I want to be clear on that, right?
Okay. Yeah.
As in, interview gets scheduled. Mm-hmm. And candidates don't show up to the interview.
Oh, wow. What's the point of going through that whole process, right?
That happens all the time. So if you're listening, don't be telling me that it doesn't, because I've worked in corporate HR, and I know firsthand that candidates don't show up to interviews. Heck, candidates may even get hired and then not show up to their first day, right?
Oh my
and you
God.
never hear from them. Okay, so this isn't. And again, we talked about this earlier. It all just kind of comes back. No matter what, there is two competing forces that goes on in capitalism. Is that in each one of those competing forces wants the upper hand,
right?
The employer or the employee, right? And no matter what, they're going to try to get the upper hand on the other.
Yes. Yeah.
And they both do nasty things to each other, right? And a lot of times it stems back to not having a great talent experience.
Well, there you guys have it. So, Brad, another episode of Imagine Better, buddy.
Yeah, well,
Thanks for coming in.
I appreciate that, man. That was hopefully I brought the heat for 2025.
No, I'm excited because I'm you know, you guys, everything in every way, shape, or form, I'll have all the information in the description of this episode, so you can get a hold of Brad. But if you have questions on any of this conversation, leave in the comments. Don't forget to go to our YouTube channel, Imagine Better. Hit the notification button so you don't miss other amazing episodes like this. And remember, share this content. Help us reach others that are struggling with a variety of different issues in their life that, you know, guests on this show are providing value, guidance, and resources to really lend a hand out there. So you guys, go out, crush it today. Imagine Better. Love you guys. Thank you. That's it, brother.
See. All right, man.